All right, welcome everybody. Good evening. This is our second Youth Worker webinar of 2022. We're very happy to continue our theme from our conference earlier this year about cultivating gifts, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today with Erin Ghata. Erin Ghata is a Kansas girl living in Oklahoma. She serves as the full-time parish youth director
Oh,
for
that's
St.
old.
Oh, that's the old blurb?
Yeah, that's not what I emailed you. But that's cool. It's a fun throwback.
It's served. She not served
Yeah,
as the
yeah, yeah.
full-time parish youth director for St. Elijah in Oklahoma City from 2007 to 2016. She has served as the program director and assistant to the director for Camp St. Raphael, which is now in Oklahoma as well, for 15 years, and was also the diocese youth director for the Antiochian Diocese of Wichita in Mid-America for more than 10 years. And now she serves as the Youth Ministries director for the entire Antiochian Orthodox Christian Archdiocese of North America. And when she's not spending her time working on youth ministries and camps, she can usually be found winning board games, albeit frustrated by her husband, or eating food with her fun-loving husband Joe and their regal beagle Cal, whom you may hear from at some point during this evening. So, Erin, you've been a wonderful person to work with as part of the Orthodox Youth Directors. So I'm very excited that you're our presenter here. And again, if you're joining us on the webinar, feel free to raise your hand and we'll promote you to panelist so you can ask your question directly to Erin. And otherwise, I turn it over to you. Let's have fun.
Great. Thanks, Father David. Do we open with prayer ever, or do we just go for it?
That's a great question. We can if you like.
Okay. I nominate you.
All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Christ is ascended in glory, bringing joy to his disciples by the promise of the Holy Spirit. By this blessing they were assured that you are the Son of God, the Savior of the world. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Lord of mercy, Lord of mercy, Lord of mercy. Lord Jesus Christ, our God, bless your servant, Erin, all those participating in our webinar this evening, and all those who will be blessed by watching and hearing it later. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I do apologize in advance, as Father David said. My husband is not home this evening, and our beagle Cal is. So if you hear Beagle snoring or barking, just know that he already heard the webinar because I practiced this afternoon, so he doesn't have to pay attention. But I totally understand people not wanting to be on camera. I am hoping to have as much input and discussion type conversation as we possibly can. So get your chat fingers ready to type and try to keep an eye on there. And Father David, maybe you can help me if I miss anything that anybody says. Because yeah, I talk to myself all the time. So I love to talk with you. But I'm grateful for this chance to hang out for the evening, and we're going to talk about what we can do to help cultivate the gifts that our young people have. Because if you haven't noticed, they're kind of talented. And youth ministry is a very natural place to witness growth. We witness physical growth, we witness mental and emotional and spiritual growth. We witness like whole person growth in our line of work. And our programs can often be a place where young people discover their own gifts and begin to put them into practice. I did a quick Google search of the word gifts in the Bible, and I got 92 instances where the word gifts is used in scripture. Some of them are about gifts of sacrifice, like offering gifts to the Lord, and giving gifts. But some are about acknowledging the different gifts and talents we are given. Like in 1 Corinthians, when St. Paul reminds us that there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit, and there are varieties of service, but the same Lord. And in Ephesians, he acknowledges that that grace is given as a gift to all, but we still differ in strengths, as Christ gave some the gift to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, pastors, and teachers. There's all sorts of talk in the New Testament about different skills being used for the benefit of the church. So it's those kinds of gifts, not the sacrifice Although my friend Father Jeremy Davis has a new book on sacrifice. If you want to read about gifts of sacrifice, you should check it out. It's sold on Ancient Faith, and he did not pay me to say that. So there you go. But I want to talk about the other kind of gifts, the ones that St. Paul is referencing tonight, and see if we can find ways to help our young people foster their God-given gifts within our parishes and programs. I'm going to tell a quick personal story, but while I do that, if y'all could throw in the chat what kind of youth work you do, like do you work camp or a parish, Sunday school, what is it that brought you here to our fun party tonight? That would be great, as I just offer a little bit of personal insight into how some gifts were cultivated for me by people that I worked with in youth ministry, or worked with me in youth ministry is what I should say. I was given the opportunity to serve at a summer camp after I graduated high school. And it was there that I realized I kind of like hanging out with young people and talking to them about things that really matter. And I was a nerd, but I really didn't feel the whole like teacher calling specifically. But something about the camp environment and living the rhythm and life of the liturgical cycle of the church and being together in that community really just struck something in me, and got to the point where my senior year in college, I was graduating with a degree in journalism, which every parent feels so confident when their child graduates with a degree in journalism. My parents were very supportive, but it wasn't like, okay, here's your next step. And everyone was like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I kept saying, I wish I could find a way to work at camp for a living. That would be really cool. And my then youth director, who's now a priest in Houston, did something at camp one day while I wasn't there. We take our oldest kids on an adventure for a day, and I was gone, and the priest from Oklahoma City came to visit, which is where Father James grew up. And he was asking if he knew anyone who might be a good youth director. And Father James did not ask me, and he gave Father Constantine my name. And so when I got back to camp, he said, I did something. I told Father Constantine you should interview for youth director in Oklahoma City. And I was like, why? I'm looking for a nonprofit PR position in all these places. Never ever thought that full-time youth ministry was on the table. And he said, I think it could be a good fit. I think it could be good for you and good for them. And I was just stunned. And the next week I was here in Oklahoma City interviewing, and obviously got the job and met a boy while I lived here and got married and still live here. And that entrusting, like that suggestion of Father James really changed my whole life. Him noticing a gift that I had that maybe I saw in myself, where it was something I enjoyed, but didn't really realize could be something that I offered or had as a job. Him noticing that changed everything for me. So cultivating gifts is a big deal, and I'm very passionate about it because someone did it really, really well for me. And so I have a desire to pay that forward. So I see that we're mostly like camp. We have camp and parish, parish and diocese, and church school, which is a good fun variety, kind of hits all of the youth ministry points that we're used to. I don't know if y'all were willing to hang out. I was going to ask if anyone had a gift in them that was fostered in the church by a mentor or somebody that they really kind of got to come into their own as a result of that. If that's something you feel like you could type not too long, or I would love to hear about it, but I totally get it if you don't want to share. So my point being that most of us are doing what we're doing in the church because somebody noticed that we might be good at it. And even when we might have not have noticed that we would be good at it, we still were called to that, and it made a big difference for a lot of people. I know it did for me. But I don't see anything popping in there, so I'm going to move forward, but I will stop if someone shares, okay? So some of us provide really, really healthy environments for growth, even with challenges and imperfections. And some of us struggle in this area, but either way, there's room for, well, growth. And we in the Archdiocese, the Antiochian Archdiocese, recently conducted a survey. A lot of us in the youth ministry department are new in our official roles. We kind of wanted to look at like what's good, what works, what do people love, what needs help, what's beneficial, what do people need, what should we be spending our time doing. So we did this big survey, and I know the OCA just finished something similar. But we asked our young people, so teens and youth workers, Sunday school teachers, parents, and clergy to fill out these different surveys. They were tailored for those groups. And we got a lot of really great input into what's happening and what people are feeling and thinking and desiring. It's been really a helpful tool for us to look at as we plan moving forward. But Father David has shared there were people over the course of his life as early as adolescence that identified gifts and encouraged him in the direction of ministry. Yeah, and I think that's like most likely same song, different verse for most of us, hopefully. Some people come to their vocation out of other things, but usually it's at the encouragement or investment of somebody along the way. When we finished, when we looked at the results of the survey, there were several overarching themes, but the one that I think is most relevant for us tonight is that our kids really want to be active and necessary parts of the things that the church is doing. And one young person had this quote to say that I think about almost every day. They shared, and I have no idea who it is or where they're from, I just know what time they filled out the survey. It says, the hardest thing about being a young person in the church is wanting to serve God so badly, yet not being sure how to do so since many roles are traditionally filled by adults. Adults assume that because we are young, we don't have the skills, ideas, or attitude to serve, but that's simply not true. It can also be difficult when adults in the church do not want to hear new ideas about doing things, i.e. activities after church and throughout the week differently. And this young person said very eloquently what a lot of other young people in the teen category and in the young adult category said as well. We want to do something. We're here. Like the people that filled out this survey are people that were already connected to the church. We have like a major participation bias in that category. They knew about the survey. Someone in the church told them about the survey. They felt invested enough in the church to fill out the survey. So a connected young person wrote and felt those things. And a lot of their peers did the same. So our young people desire to be active and necessary parts of the ministries of the church, not just observers. I want to be real honest with you and acknowledge a potential like knee-jerk reaction that I know I had when I read some of this feedback, and maybe some of you have too. My first thought was like, nuh-uh, not here. We got this, and we do that, and we have all the things, and we do everything all the time. And even if it was that way, it wouldn't be my fault because we're offering things to people. And I kind of had this like thing that I felt ramping up inside of me that was like, nuh-uh, not me. But the truth is, this person is probably part of an active parish. That this is a real community that this person is connected to, and this is still what they're feeling. Their sentiments were echoed by others, and even more young adults. Their parish is probably active, but they don't feel like they have a role. And if I'm honest, there's probably people in my own parish that feel that way too, young people. And I'm in charge of youth ministry for the whole Archdiocese, so good job, Erin. But maybe this person, I'm trying to like rationalize who they are. You know, you read a quote from someone and you try to picture them. So I've like built these alternative stories for them in my brain, but maybe they had some ideas that got shot down. Maybe they were really terrible ideas and shouldn't have been on the table in the first place. Or maybe their idea meant changing something that has been the same for generations and isn't really a vital part of the faith, but is more one of those like small t things that we tend to stick to in our parishes, communities, and programs. So I'm not suggesting that we approve every suggestion or take every, young person, zealous young person with an idea and fully give them like the green light on whatever it is that they want to do. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that I was convicted by how often I personally instinctively resist change. And especially when it implies something I do or work on is falling short, or is not as perfect as I would like to think that it is. So I just wanted to like throw that confession of those instincts in myself and out there and make us potentially aware if maybe none of you feel that way, but other people in your church might, and it might make things a little difficult. So the rough news is that even our connected young people feel their potential contributions and talents are not needed or welcome in the church. And as adults and leaders, their involvement and gifts are what we want to have and utilize. So none of us are getting what we want. None of us want kids who are less engaged or invested, but it seems the two ideals, people being more involved and us having people more involved, which are really the same ideal, are missing each other in actualization. Full community desired by all ages is struggling to materialize. That's the rough news. The good news is that we are perfectly situated to acknowledge and address this struggle in the church. Because in my opinion, the answer to this dissonance is for the church to be the church, which I know sounds like a cop-out answer, but let me explain. For 2,000 years, we've modeled and molded our lives after those of holy people. Whether cradle or convert, we've witnessed and studied holy and prayerful people and learned through fellowship with them how to live our own lives. We cherish the writings of the fathers, but we commemorate the lives of the saints. The holy examples we get to follow and emulate. I will share another personal anecdote in that we lost my grandmother in November. She was 95 and had a beautiful life. But I've been thinking about what her life meant for my life a lot more lately. And I realized that my catechism in the church was like literally just her example. I sat by her in church every Sunday because my parents sang in the choir. And so I learned when to cross myself because the bangles on her right wrist would jingle when it was time to cross herself. And she taught adult Sunday school for years. She was a brilliant woman, but she never sat and catechized me or taught me, anything specific. I just lived my life with her as she lived her life in the church. And it was amazing. And those like moments and lessons are more valuable to me than the wonderful Sunday school lessons that I did have. I don't mean to downplay like formal education. But the examples we have around us are often more powerful teaching tools than a curriculum can be. I'm going to pause and see what did you say here, Father David? Cultivating gifts means making room for other people's ideas and for them to take some room and some spotlight. Oh, are you seeing my notes?
Yeah, I'm just taking notes on what you're saying and sharing it with the group.
I thought you were throwing out your own thoughts. That's
well, it's sort of. I mean, I'm reflecting it back and hoping people will jump in the chat with me. But don't let that distract you.
You're fine. Yeah, thank you. Sorry for misunderstanding. So, the good news is mentorship is organic in the church. We're already built for it. We're built generationally. That's the word that I'm looking for. I don't know if that's a real word, but it is now. We're set up for this to be such a natural ecosystem for people to learn from each other and be examples for each other, good and bad, right? And even though this is how we've been passing the faith for centuries, is just person to person, life to life, our current conditions and habits might make us a little more prone to I don't know, not going against what's organic, but trying to focus on other things instead of what has come so naturally to the church. And we may just need to be more intentional about offering mentorship opportunities and fostering gifts in our youth. So tonight, I thought I could borrow / steal 3 guiding principles from the YES program. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with YES. I know Natalie is. Our good friend Katrina runs YES North America, which is a ministry of Focus North America and is a service organization for young people that has done a lot of really great leadership development and other things. But part of the whole YES thing is in their E, like YES. They have the number 4 because they have 4 E's that they focus on in their program. We're going to borrow 3 of them because we don't have time to talk about one of them, and because I believe in discussing one hurdle at a time. So the one we're going to skip is expose, because you can't build a fostering environment without exposing people to it. For the sake of not being stuck on too many things, we're going to assume that some sort of liturgical life and existing environment is already a thing for most of us, okay? Unless someone here is starting a brand new parish or program from scratch, in which case, God be with you. That's not what we're going to focus on for tonight. But the 3 other E's we're going to take a look at each one, and see if we can kind of develop a mental checklist for us to go through with our plans and goals using these things so that we can better position ourselves to foster growth. So the 3 E's for us are going to be engage, equip, and entrust. So the first is for us to engage. Another common theme in this survey, which comes in tandem with the quote that I shared you, is that young people want to feel engaged in the work of the church. Ultimately, we know that this is most importantly, like liturgically, prayerfully, spiritually. But in my experience, this can be kind of a chicken or the egg situation, because sometimes it's engagement in hands-on ministry that leads to prayerful and mystical engagement, and sometimes it's the other way around. But honestly, it doesn't really matter which piece we start with, because both are important. And we need to take an honest look at whatever we're doing, liturgically, in a ministry fashion, in an education fashion, in a fellowship fashion, and see what we're doing with our parish and our program, and ask if there are known or potential opportunities for young people to actively engage in what's happening. We asked the question on the survey. We said, what would you most like to see in the church? And one kid wrote, connection with the rest of the parish, such as inviting teens to ministries. And I thought, wow, that means there's ministries happening at this parish that this kid feels like they're not invited to. That's kind of a very striking realization to come to. And there's ministry happening where they live. They don't feel like they get to participate. And I'm going to throw out a soapbox alert, because personally, I've been really grappling with this lately. And I'm wondering if this sentiment or circumstance is a product of the silos some of our parishes and organizations have created. We have a ladies group, a men's group, a teens, a youth group, a music group, a this group, all of these groups, and they all do really great things, but they do them more separately than together outside of the liturgy. And we often hear about our culture becoming individualistic, which is certainly true, but I think our churches have kind of become organizationalistic, which is a word that I think I made up. And those groups are all really good. That's why I'm struggling with it. And this is a soapbox moment for me. I'm acknowledging that, because those groups all do really good things. But to younger people or even less mature people, they can also feel really exclusive. And I'm not sure that that is doing us any favors. And that's what came to mind when I read that quote from that young person. So I was wondering if you all are willing to throw out, if you have something that works really well that young people are actively engaged in your parish or your program, and by that I mean they're participating in making this thing happen, not you have this thing for them. Okay, let me clarify that. So I was wondering if anyone would be willing to throw out some examples of things that you think could work or do work where you are, or what you would like to. Natalie saying, yeah, I think that can cause a separation, finding the balance between age, interest, appropriate, and full family. Yeah, it's a real struggle, because the youth group time is important, and it's important that there's not, two adults for every teen that's there. But when it comes to full parish family, got it. When it comes to like people feeling excluded from ministry efforts, is maybe like more of where we need to re-examine our what's it called when you demographic our demographic specific things that we do. Anybody have something that works really well in their community that they would like to share?
Erin, I was just thinking about how it plays out in our parish, and the irony is that we have times where we do things that we want the youth to be involved with, but sometimes the youth themselves are kind of like, oh, we don't want to go with those people. So they can be a niche unto themselves, right? So we have to find ways to kind of break through that. Our teen group had a great experience recently where it was just a couple of them that came, but that was enough. That the young adult group hosted a bowling outing. We were going to go hiking, but it was raining, so we went bowling instead. And the teens that came had more fun probably doing that. So the fact that a group was willing to say, hey, join us for an event that we're planning on doing, we're doing this with you, not just for you or at you, that made the difference.
Yeah, and a palpable difference, right? That's something that is very noticeable. I mean, you don't have to be that old to notice the difference between doing something with or doing something for sure. And those cross-generational moments is what offers like these mentorship cultivation opportunities and connections and things like that. So it can be very helpful. Nobody else has put anything in there. Okay. All right. Yes. Let's see. I moved my computer mouse over. Sorry. Okay. Something that's not perfect. Nothing is. But when we plan our year, we intentionally look at what the parish has planned for the year and what our youth can be a part of. This often guides our plan for the year, and then plugging in the age appropriate parts of the ministry. Our parish also loves parish fun night, everyone together. I want to go to parish fun night. Don't know what that is, but I want to do it. That's great, Natalie. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, being really intentional with your calendar is an excellent first step for engagement. Absolutely. Danielle says, beautifying our house. My parish has our older elementary, middle school students refill all the liturgical items, candles. That's awesome. Yeah. And what a great thing that's easy for small hands to do, smaller hands, younger hands to do. Thanks, Father David. If you would rather just like speak invisibly than type, then you are definitely welcome to do that too. Thank you guys for sharing, though. I appreciate it. It doesn't take much, because again, nothing I say is going to be earth-shattering or something that I'm the only one that's thought of it. Like, I'm not cool or smart enough for that at all. It's just remembering who we are and what we're supposed to be doing that really is the answer to this ministry problem in particular, I think. The next letter E, so that was engage. Oh, parish fun night, more details. Vespers, games, group games, bringing in small groups, food, hanging out. Oh, the Parcheesi, the introduction to Parcheesi happened there. That sounds delightful. Yeah, that's a great, and just like reinforcing that the church is a place that we come together, like to do our whole lives together, right? We come to offer our whole lives unto Christ, ourselves and each other, and all our lives unto Christ. and including the fun parts and the eating parts and the sad parts and the hard parts and all of that. So the more that we reinforce, like, this is our environment, this is where we live, and we do it all we live together, the better off we are, I think, personally. I don't think I'm the only one that thinks that. So the next E, if we're moving on, is the word equip. So after people are engaged, it's important to equip them. And this is where we come back to mentorship, because each opportunity for engagement comes with a chance to learn from someone who already knows the ropes, okay? The person or group who always does X, Y, and Z. If a few young people were invited to join them, like, what a difference that could make. The man who is always the voice of Hades on Tosca behind the doors, right? What if a young person got to hold the candle or light while they did their part? Natalie, did you want to say something? Okay, accident. We are active. We have active programs. We have active parishes. Things are happening, even in small places. Things are happening. And our young people are telling us that they want to help. Instead of having our teens clean up the hall after an event, which is a very common teen job, what if they helped with the event? Everybody cleaned up together. What if instead of a youth choir, our youth sang in the choir? What if the wonderful aunt or teta or yaya or siti or whoever it is, the human at your church who has made themselves in charge of your kitchen, I know that person exists for everybody. What if they had one or two assistants or apprentices? What a beautiful opportunity to allow our young people to serve alongside capable adults. And the benefits of that opportunity, I think, are like endless. It engages and equips them in ministry, but it also engages them with another member of their church family. And it comes back to that E that we skipped, which is expose, because it exposes them to something that gets done in the community behind the scenes and helps make other things possible. Like Danielle was saying, changing the candles and stuff. I don't know who does that at our church. I just go and the candles are always fine, right? So it gives an opportunity for people to see, like, oh, someone makes this happen. I can be part of helping to make that happen. Father David is sharing, we recently had a high school graduation recognition. One of the graduates personally thanked the choir for letting her jump in from age 10. And she was one of the best voices. I love that. And what a thing, like, what a beautiful thing to offer thanks. And what an interesting thing to think about, that she knew that it was kind of like a thing for them to let her in, you know? That's like a multi-layered, amazing, beautiful situation. I love that. And and again, everything comes with a caveat. Like, I'm not giving just like go cards to every young person or every idea, because some people, young people, if they were in the choir, would be a distraction for the whole church. I fully acknowledge that. But some people are very capable in participating in the ministry the choir does at a young age. Natalie, hand up, let's go.
So Erin, this goes along with Father David's. I was thinking about it as he typed it. We have a couple, we've always sort of had young people that go in and out of our choir, but we always try to target those that we know have the talent. So most recently, we have a high school graduate as well, who, beautiful voice, sang from the time he was little, but never went up in the choir until I started kind of poking. And I would say, they really need another guy's voice up there. Matsushka Larissa would be thrilled if you walked up the stairs. And then one week, someone he knew who was in college was there, and I poked at both of them to go up. And they both went up. And then since then, when he's there, he goes up, and he was there for Sunday for his graduation and recognition. And he looked at me and went, I can go upstairs, right? I'm like, yes, you don't even have to ask me. Just walk up the stairs. But I think, I don't know, sometimes I don't say that they belong, but they're trepidatious because there are mostly adults there. And it's not because the adults that are there aren't welcoming.
No.
I think sometimes they need just that little gentle nudge.
It's a gift that they have that needs to be cultivated.
Just nudge them into it constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like someone can be like super confident singer at school and does all these concerts all the time, and they don't sing at church on Sunday because they think it's something that adults do. Like there's something wrong with that. That's just an example. I mean, the choir is always a great example, and I don't want to call them a bullseye, but like the choir and the chanter stand, those are like very visible contribution points in church. So they glean a lot of attention.
I know this is starting to fall out of fashion within our schools, but for a while, service hours and senior projects were very popular.
Mhm.
And we encouraged our young people to do them at the parish. And so, like, we had 2 high school seniors, they went to the same high school, and they took over Our Lady Society cookie walk for the year, which is huge for us. And they worked with the adult chairman, but they did their entire senior project as co-chairman of Our Lady Society cookie walk. We've had kids with our dance group who have come in and done a teaching project with kids with folk dancing. So, I mean, I think encouraging kids that way as well, like what they have to do in the secular world can be brought into the church with their
Yeah.
talents.
Yeah. And I understand, Father David, what you're saying about sometimes inviting the kids, and they're the ones that kind of seem like a little bit like this. But the invitation is such a vital part. It's a vital part of it. And just knowing that the invitation stands is a huge thing. And right, that's very much in the gospel too. It's like, all these people are invited. Not everybody shows up, but there's more people to invite. And the invitations are constantly going out to the highways and byways. Yeah, and we can take it. Like our stuff goes on if they don't participate in that moment. Like it's not going to stop what's happening. But it's hard to feel like you want to participate and that you can't, or you aren't allowed. That's a completely different kind of struggle. Natalie mentioned a big event at their parish, and I was talking to a young girl in our parish, she's 11, about the upcoming bake sale / food festival. Here they call it a bake sale. I don't know if that's like an Oklahoma thing, but it's our food festival. And soon, like midsummer, they're going to start preparing for it. It's in November. But some people hate the food festival. It's so much work, and a common complaint is that the burden always falls on the same already hardworking people, which I feel like this is another same song, different verse, no matter where we live. But when we were talking about the bake sale, her face lit up. She was like, I love the bake sale and the work days. I love putting on an apron and being with everyone and walking around to see who might need help. Like that was the thing that she loved about the bake sale. And like, bingo, that's it. Everybody, all these adults that complain about having to work and do all these things and nobody comes to help. This young 11-year-old girl, her favorite thing about the bake sale is getting to come and walk around seeing who she might be able to help with whatever they're doing. That's like her highlight. And I think that youthful spirit is a commonality among a lot of our young people if they have a chance to feel like they're actually helping somebody with something or contributing. And I have to admit, I felt that when I was young. I loved working at the church with my Sifty and her friends. I learned how to roll the perfect grape leaf. I learned how to cook rice for 500 people. And I learned how to love people even when they don't put enough lemon in their cabbage rolls. Like it really was a fully educational experience for me. I enjoyed every minute of it. And most people would have thought, oh, why did Erin have to come with you? It's so she would probably rather be somewhere else. No, I just wanted to be with them, watching what they were doing, learning what they were doing. It was great. So the more we can work alongside one another and with our youth, anything cross-generational, the more we can equip them to be wonderful contributors and active participants in ministry and help foster their gifts and desire to serve Christ and his church. Natalie, is your hand up from before or is it up again? Okay, I didn't want to skip you. The last E that we have is entrust. This is potentially the toughest one for some of us because ironically, even tired, overworked people in the church tend to have a fear of being replaced or pushed out. But entrusting isn't exiting. Okay, I'm going to say that twice because I think it's really important and something we don't always understand. Entrusting isn't exiting. Once a young person has participated in something for a bit, they should be entrusted with more responsibility. It's a natural progression. We use it in our CIT program at camp. It's 3 steps. First step, I do, you watch. Second step, we do together. Third step, you do, I watch, right? It's a progression of competency and skill sets, and both people are fully engaged in the process the whole time. So I think some people, and I can lump myself into this category in some instances, are worried that someone will get to the point where they could take over this thing that they've always done. But I'm going to go ahead and say, so what? Right? So what if they get to the point where they can take over? Teachers and mentors who are surpassed by their students are rarely bitter about it, right? We need to be like that. And their roles as teachers or mentors are often amplified after being surpassed. I mean, not that we ever want to be prideful, but it's like, hey, I kind of have a hand in that. Like, that's really cool. Look at this person and all they've accomplished. And I don't know anybody who's trained someone awesome who becomes awesomer than the trainer who's mad about it. I don't know any examples. There's probably someone on YouTube will find someone. But if a young person is competent and willing to take something on, they should be given the chance. One young adult wrote in the survey, and this is something that Natalie was saying about having talents like secular talents or things utilized in the church. One young adult specifically wrote that they get to use their degrees and certifications in every aspect of their life except in the church. No one is inviting their contribution, or worse, their contribution is being refused. Like, that's a really rough feeling. And this is a young professional. Like, I don't know, they didn't write like what they do. They're an accountant, they could be doing this. Who knows what they do? But regardless, they feel like the church is the one place they can't use the talent that they've spent time like developing and getting their education. I don't think they are like a drummer or something. I'm just throwing that out there. So we need to be cognizant of talents that people have and are utilizing in other parts of their life, like Natalie was talking about, and how they could be beneficial to our church communities. So being and feeling entrusted is a really vital step in the growth of a human. And again, I'm not saying go crazy, but I am suggesting we be extremely intentional in looking for opportunities to entrust those in our care with chances to serve and contribute. And if we are truly entrusting, like I said, we're still present, bestowing that trust. You don't just trust and then leave. You're still there bestowing that trust. Because entrusting isn't exiting, it's just shifting our role. Let's see, Father David, in a lot of our old world cultures, youth extends well into adulthood, and a person cannot be effective leader until their 40s, and only if they're married in their 40s. I'm just going to throw that out there as like a sentiment that you're still in the young adult group, no matter how old you are, because if you're not married, or God forbid you're married and you don't have kids, like it's this whole like cultural thing that we all grapple with. And we do extend childhood for people, for better or for worse. Even just culturally, I think in the United States, we do that.
If we look at the history of our youth organizations, Orthodox youth organizations, almost all of them were called youth organizations, but they actually meant people in their 20s and 30s. And now they're shifted towards adolescents. But originally, the concept of youth, all those groups, if you look at the pictures from the 50s and 60s, it's all young professionals.
Yeah. And it's that particular thing that you're mentioning is like people considering people as youth, regardless of them being 30 or 40. there's an important thing to be aware of, because it can be really hurtful unintentionally to people that are adults in every other aspect of their life, except for at church. And people don't mean it. They don't mean to do it. They don't mean to say or have that vibe. But when they do, it can be pretty painful for people to work through and grapple with that. I'm not suggesting people be coddled. Actually, the opposite. I'm asking that they be treated like the adults that they potentially are. So those are the E's that I thought we could take a look at. And wrapping up, I wanted to mention there was a recent study done on kids who stayed in the church, and they had this like fun graphic that was circulating online a couple of weeks ago. I have a picture of it. I wonder if it will let me copy and paste it in the chat. Sorry, this is on the fly. Maybe my phone will let me. I don't know if you guys saw it on Facebook. It said something like 75% of kids left the church between ages 18 and 25. I'm gonna try this. It might not work.
I'll share screen.
Oh, here's the link. That didn't work.
You can share the screen if you want.
Okay, it's on my phone.
Oh, I can do it. We've opened it up.
It is. I put my computer in front of my monitor so that I could have my notes and not look down at a piece of paper. And now I'm paying the price. I can find it here. Go. Sorry, make you guys move with me. It's worth it. I promise. Hang on. We're almost there. Should have thought of it earlier. Okay. Share screen. And I will choose this screen. Sharing. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people were posting this a couple of weeks ago. It was making the rounds. I wanted to learn more about it, but the guy who made it wants a lot of money for the materials that he makes, so I didn't get to dig into it. But I've heard Father Nick Belcher quote this statistic actually in something else that he read. So the first three reasons that he says why some commonalities between young people that stayed in the church, the 25% that stayed in the church, from 18 to 19. The first three have to do with their family life and their home life. It says they ate dinner 5 of 7 nights a week as a family. They served with their families in a ministry, and then had one spiritual experience in the home during the week. And those are all really good things. I'm going to go ahead again for the sake of time saying that we don't need, those aren't our realm for right now. They are really important, but the last two should be noted by all of us. And they are that they were entrusted with responsibility in ministry at an early age. And they had at least one faith-focused adult in their life other than their parents, okay? Other than their parents. As I said before, this is where the church is already set up to foster gifts and offer mentorship organically. Nothing I said or can say would ever be earth-shattering, but if you're like me, it's good to have reminders and mental checklists to consider when ministering to young people. Because if we are able to engage, equip, and entrust, we're kind of hitting those last two elements that we don't have control of the elements inside the home, but we're helping with those last two elements that we do have the ability to affect. And again, even if we invite the workers, and even if our invitation is rejected, they know it exists. And we wouldn't be the first bountiful harvesters to have few laborers. And we may end up with more help than we thought we would get. But we could, as always, look to Christ as an example for this, because he chose fishermen to mentor. He taught them and engaged them. He walked with them and equipped them. And then, as we just celebrated, ascended into heaven, entrusting them to share the truth with the world while promising to still be with them, right? This is not something that we're pulling out of thin air. This is something that is modeled for us by Christ and by, as I said before, by other holy people. So our young people have many gifts and so much to share with us and the world. May our efforts to engage, equip, and entrust them be a catalyst to bring them closer to Christ and his holy church. And that is my amen. I don't know how to stop sharing my screen.
Let's see. There you go.
You.
That was excellent. Thank you. Erin, I had a question for you that I wanted to ask from the beginning. Since we were talking about cultivating gifts in the kind of the general sense of in your parish community, but are there any particular things that you do to cultivate the gifts towards youth ministry as you're mentoring the next generation of youth workers? Say, you mentioned the counselors in training, for example, but do you have any, I don't know, hints, secrets, hacks?
No, I don't have any like super success stories, although I think it, and again, I'm not an example, like people should not look at me and be like, I want to be like her, like the world would be in big trouble. But I think just showing people that there are opportunities in ministry. I mean, that's what Father James did for me. And then some of our counselors at camp, like I can think of at least 3 of them that right now, or 2 of them right now are, one has moved on to a different career, but grew up in our camp program, and then were realized that like this is a job. Like you could have this job. This is a real thing. There are parishes in our diocese that pay full-time youth workers. And so it was really just more of an awareness thing. And it probably differs from environment to environment, because I know in the Antiochian Archdiocese, like our diocese is kind of unique. I think we have the most full-time paid youth workers. And we have 5. I'm not saying we have 1 million, but like, so knowing about the opportunities for which to share or encourage young people is a really helpful piece, because they just might not know it's even an option. So if you see someone with those gifts and you think, man, they would be really good for this, offering that to them as something to consider is a really simple and helpful way. That's the only example that concrete example that I can think of. But just like thinking through people's skill sets with them and thinking about the opportunities in the church that exist. I'm big on recruiting talented people to do church work. And I think we're all growing to points where we're starting to have more opportunities for talented people to do church work, like as a full-time thing, not just as a volunteer. We're getting there. We're behind, but we're getting there. Does that answer your question?
Sure. I'm just looking for stuff because this is actually something I'm working on with my camp, and we're revamping our counseling program. And one of the things I'm trying to do with the counselors is throughout the week while they're there, I'm also giving them training in mentorship and what that means, so that they're not just coming to work, they're also coming to learn. Mm-hmm. So even while the younger kids are getting their religious education, the counselors will also be able to get some valuable training. And one of the things I was thinking about when I knew we were talking about cultivating gifts is, you ever heard of the concept of the 6 types of working genius?
No.
Let me, I'm gonna, if I can be annoying, I might share my screen here real quick so you can see what it looks like. This is something I picked up from the Orthodox Christian Leadership Initiative. Okay. And I'll be using it. But the idea is that every person has 2 areas in which they excel, where they have gifts. So, for example, a person who has the wonder is like, they come up with the ideas. Invention is, this is the person who takes the idea and runs and creates the schematics. Discernment is the person who's really good at saying, yeah, that's not going to work, or we could work with this, Galvanizing is then the person that gets the team moving, say, okay, everybody, let's go. We're going to do this. Enabling is the person who carries the the third run of the relay race, so to speak, and tenacity is the person who helps make sure it gets finished. And they said, like, each person in a group environment or something like that will demonstrate two of these areas as their strengths, usually, maybe one more than other. But one of the things I noticed, and I used to do this when I was in a TA in the university and working with the undergrads, was trying to teach them this kind of stuff so that they would understand when they get into a team environment or a group environment, there's also a layer of gifts that happens on a group dynamic level. And being able to discern your gifts and that of others will save you a lot of frustration and headache, so that you're not like wondering, why don't these people do what I do and stuff like, well, that's not their gift, right? So I think leadership training stuff, mentorship training stuff, group dynamic training stuff would all be really good for us as youth workers, so that we can pick up these kind of ideas and help that when we're cultivating gifts.
Yeah, and when you put up that graphic, I remembered I got to listen to that presentation at the Youth Worker Conference this year. I forgot that was what that piece was called, but so important. And I would just add that like part of that ability to cultivate and mentor and kind of like mentor potential mentors, which is what we all kind of end up hoping to do, right? Is that not all ministry looks the same or is like specifically for the church, and cultivating mentors that will be wonderful role models within the church for people in a profession that on paper has nothing to do with the church, but is their ministry to the world, right? Having a list of faithful physicians and a list of faithful attorneys and a list of faithful journalists, a list of like all these different kinds of people that not all mentorship and ministry is specifically just strictly within the confines of something specifically Orthodox, but it becomes, faithful because faithful people do it, is really huge, I think, to remember as we're encouraging other people. Anybody else have any questions? Would be respectful of your time. I don't know if all of you live on the East Coast, but I know at least 3 of you do. The sun's still up here, I'm just saying.
It's very sunny where I'm at. Danielle.
Just want to say this was awesome, great insights, and I'm so glad I was able to join. Sorry I couldn't be on camera, but I really got a lot out of it. So thank you for taking the time.
For being here. I could just feel your presence. It was lovely.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. God bless you. Thank you, Erin, for a stimulating and inspiring and engaging and equipping and entrusting evening.
Cool. Thank you all for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thanks. All right. Good night, everybody. God bless.